We are live.
Okay, Ronnie.
Okay, I'd like to call the community development meeting to order. Members Lori Gorman,
Here.
Dallas Bigley,
Present.
and myself. And the reason why we're here for this meeting is to have Mr. Charles Swatell regarding trees throughout our city. Okay, it's up to you.
All right. There's been a lot of talk since.
We move that thing so it goes.
Glad to be here, guys. Thanks for having me. My wife and I moved here at the end of 2023. Longtime resident in Trumbull County. Her family's from Mahoning County. So we moved here to be closer to her family. It's been a blessing. Very happy to be a part of Struthers. The one thing that I did notice immediately, though, is that we do not have a lot of green space. We don't have a lot of trees. We're kind of in the figurative concrete jungle, if you will. What I'd like to do is, my wife and I came up with a video. It's about 6 or 7 minutes long. I'd like to let you guys watch that, if you will. Very informational. And then, of course, after the video, please feel free. That's why I'm here. Ask as many questions as you would like. I have no notes. Everything you ask me will be genuine, off the cuff. So whatever it is, please feel free to ask. So, if you will.
Can I add that he was the one that made the Christmas tree happen too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you should probably tell your credentials.
Yeah,
I say
that's a
certified arborist.
That's a big credential.
Yeah.
You're a master gardener, right?
Yes. Hopefully. We'll have to turn it up here. Do you guys have the volume over there?
Yeah, I'm putting it up right now.
Okay.
See if that's high enough. I don't want to make it too loud.
Might want to go a little higher. The missus talks a little quiet.
As we face the challenges of urbanization and climate change, one of the most impactful and sustainable solutions we have is right outside our doors: trees. Urban tree planting not only beautifies our cities, but also provides a multitude of benefits, from improving air quality and reducing heat umbrellas to fostering community well-being. Let's explore how planting trees in our urban spaces can transform our environment, enhance our quality of life, and create a greener, more sustainable future for all. Urban tree planting is not just important, but essential for our cities today and for generations to come. Our cities are never short on pavement and concrete. These hardscape surfaces absorb tremendous amounts of heat, creating an urban heat umbrella, also known as heat islands. These heat islands scorch the moisture out of the urban environments in which we live, significantly raising surface temperatures and creating heat-related hazards. Depending on the day, temperatures range from 3 to 10 degrees higher in developed areas.
Shade from trees can reduce soil temperatures by as much as 8 degrees. Trees can also cool hard surfaces by 4 times that amount. Trees reduce energy costs, improve our environments, reduce flooding and stormwater runoff, and benefit us both physically and psychologically.
Trees and green spaces have a positive impact on mental health. Numerous studies have shown that spending time in natural environments, including areas with trees, can offer several mental health benefits. Reduced stress, improved mood, increased attention and focus, better sleep, enhanced social interaction, increased physical activity, and connection to nature. Overall, trees and green spaces contribute significantly to mental health by providing environments that promote relaxation, reduce stress, improve mood, and foster a sense of well-being.
Speaking of psychology, did you know that the basal ganglia in your brain is responsible for fight or flight interpretations and the judgments of people and situations? 69% of people make a judgment of someone before they ever speak. 85% of people prefer people who smell good. So I showed up today clean with a quick dose of Axe body spray. 87% of my message today will be judged based upon the tone of my voice when I speak in person or during this video. Before we begin to navigate the hurdles of implementing more trees into our spaces, let's first talk about urban tree environments, such as our city of Struthers and the surrounding neighborhoods. For any city or neighborhood, the standard target goal for the tree canopy is to be at least 30% of our city limits underneath of tree canopy. Currently, Struthers sits at less than 10%, which is remarkably low. According to the 2020 census, the population of Struthers was 10,063. According to several research-based studies, one tree can produce enough oxygen to allow 10 of us to breathe.
Research suggests that trees and green spaces can help lower crime in urban areas for a couple reasons. One is natural surveillance, or the fact that residents are more likely to observe and report suspicious activity, as trees provide a sense of comfort and connection to their property and surrounding area. Another being that trees foster community pride and cohesion. Areas with trees and greenery are often associated with higher levels of pride and ownership. This sense of pride can encourage people to look after their neighborhood and discourage criminal behavior. Studies have found that neighborhoods with more trees and green spaces tend to have lower rates of both violent and property crimes compared to areas that lack such natural elements.
One of the greatest environmental benefactors of urban trees is that they help us to manage stormwater. Their root systems absorb and filter rainwater, reducing the amount of runoff that enters storm drains by 30%. As they intercept rainfall, they decrease the likelihood of flooding and erosion. Additionally, tree canopies slow down the rate at which rainwater reaches the ground, allowing more time for absorption into the soil. This natural filtration helps improve water quality by reducing pollutants carried by runoff. Urban areas with trees and green spaces tend to have better stormwater management compared to areas without these natural features.
Today we learned that trees lower surface temperatures, help citizens both mentally and physically, clean the air and provide oxygen, lower crime rates, and reduce stormwater runoff. But that's not all. Trees also calm people, look and smell good, and they create a safety barrier between traffic and pedestrians, as streets with trees are shown to have lower traffic speeds. Working together, we can strive to conserve existing trees and habitats, provide opportunities to grow our urban tree canopy, and create beautiful recreation areas within our hometown of Struthers, which proudly carries the designation of Tree City, USA.
Yeah, absolutely, if you'd like to. For sure. Yeah. So, a lot of information, guys. Do we have any questions
How
right
do
off
you-
the cuff?
Yeah, how do you go about where you're placing these trees to get to from 10% to 30%?
Well, one of the topics that's been discussed, when I mentioned in my opening statement, there's just been a lot of discussion. The first thing and the only thing, truthfully, that I've heard negative is about the sidewalks. And I get that.
Ours generally, I'll be honest, my problems in the past have been sidewalks, roadways, our curbs get busted up a lot.
Sure.
We've gotten Poland Avenue repaved recently and the sidewalks done. Prior to that, there was a mess due to the trees that they did have there.
Sure.
They planted huge trees on the Devil Strip. Obviously, some of the trees might have been 100 years old, but nonetheless, they did substantial damage. So now that we've gotten it back in order, I'm more like, well, listen, we need to be very like pinpoint on what goes back in near the street so that we don't have to do this process again in 20 years.
Sure. Well, there's several points that I could bring up about that. Number one is that most of the trees and the problems that you guys have was because of poor management. And I don't mean you guys, I mean generations before us. So what happened is they got planted the wrong tree in the wrong place, number one. And number two, there's an argument that you can make about what is the normal expectancy or serviceability, if you will, of a concrete poured sidewalk. Because concrete's always hardening, it's porous, it breaks down. So if you had a concrete slab that was unaffected by tree roots, how long would that last? That's an argument we can make.
Sure.
So then additionally, the wrong tree in the wrong place, you have to train the tree, number one, with proper management. Number two, there's all kinds of solutions nowadays for tree wells. There's different planting methods. You can raise the sidewalk a little bit and slope it so there's no tripping hazards. It also gives room for the root systems to spread and grow within that tree well so that it won't affect the hard surface as much because we've now given it the space that it needs.
But with us already having new sidewalks, raising them really wouldn't be much of an option for us.
In certain areas, but I will say that in a lot of the city, there are some pretty old sidewalks in areas.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so, like I said, with proper management and picking the right tree in the right place, you know, I'm not saying that we're gonna go out and I'm gonna plant a Dawn redwood that's gonna grow 170 feet on a tree walkway there.
Sure.
You know, I'm not gonna do that.
Well, I guess my other thing would be too, we would be whatever these got planted, whatever, even if they were things that fell into that, we would be relying on the resident to manage the tree.
Possibly.
So that's gonna fall into us. Listen, this person who lives here now who planted the tree may maintenance it and may do a great job.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sell the house. And then that person does not do that. And we're back where we started would be a fear of mine.
Sure.
Well, what are we looking at doing? Like, what is your plan? Because I know we talked about it a while ago, we have to
Sure.
schedule those meetings again, but with the tree, not survey, what am I trying to say?
Tree inventory.
Tree inventory.
Which, by the way, let me show you what that looks like, since we're talking about it real quick.
I have all those parcels for you.
It was very shocking news for me today to hear about Mayor Tedesco because I just worked with him. As soon as I find it, I can't remember which one it is. I just did a tree inventory for the city of Campbell at Roosevelt Park. And this is a little bit of what you could expect from me with a tree inventory. And what I did was I went through Roosevelt Park and I assessed 193 trees within the park boundaries. I did what's called a level 1 assessment. There's 3 levels of assessment with certified arborists. Level 1, 2, and 3. 1 is everything you see from the ground, not leaving the ground and not using any aerial device. Level 2 is being on the ground, but you can use a device such as a camera or you could use a drone. Level 3 is you're entering the canopy of the tree, you're doing a full inspection, you're sounding. Sounding is using a mallet, making sure it's not hollow, you know, something you might not see, things like that.
So you're actually at that point assessing the health of the tree.
You're assessing the
For
health in
level
all
3.
3, but level 3 is the most complete.
Okay.
So I did that for them and went through, and then what I typically do on my inventories is I will tell them the overall rating. So their overall risk rating for Roosevelt Park is moderate. I'm not sure if you guys frequent that park, but they have some beautiful big trees, but some of them really need some help or taken down completely. But so I'll provide that, and then I mark each tree that I find GPS coordinates. And then this will be even more elaborative if I was doing a level 2 or level 3 assessment, because I would be going through the city, what is identified as a city tree, and I would also be identifying them by species, any potential issues, future maintenance, things like that I could recommend. So, with that being said, as far as Struthers goes, what I'd like to do initially is what you and I talked about before, is I'd like to go through the city, identify what exactly the city owns and what we don't. Because right now, no one can tell me that. Nobody.
I have all the parcels now.
You do now?
I do now.
Okay, so now we can,
I have them all.
which is great. But it's hard to come up with a plan or a way to go if we don't even know where we're starting. So what I'd like to do is identify everything within the city first. See where we stand as far as the health of our current trees. Then what I'd like to do is start a tree fund. Another idea that I have, and I mentioned to Mr. Burnside a couple weeks ago, is one of the other cities I work with, they have what's called a memorial tree fund. So what people will do is, you know how sometimes in a veterans park they'll do a brick for a veteran? Well, they'll offer trees to their members that they can buy a tree and donate it to the city. And then they can also, for an additional cost, buy a memorial plaque. You know, say it's for their grandmother's 100th birthday. They can memorialize their grandmother or a veteran or whatever they would like to do. So then that establishes a tree fund for maintenance. Also, we can, you know, promote that we are trying to reestablish the tree canopy within the city. I'm sure that we'll have donors. There's so many people within the city that donate, and it's great.
Is there government funds you can attract because you are a tree city?
Yes.
With this, with what he wants to do, and so we have the tree inventory, there are things through the Arbor Day Foundation, because we're Tree City, that we can use that to apply for money for maintenance, for planting, for removal of dead or unhealthy tree. There is money there, but without.
And
we have
that
to have
association gives away trees every year, don't they?
Arbor Day Foundation
Yeah.
does. You can as the city sign up. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, if you ever heard one, you know, generations ago, Arbor Day would give out little pine trees to kids at school and things. They still do that. It's just that there's so many people that have fallen away from that program that it's not talked about as much, but it's still there.
We get 10, I'm a member, so I get 10 trees, and then we give them to the park and they plant them, and I think last time only like 6 of them took. So they're in pots on the side of the building at Mothy, but we talked about putting them at Mothy too, and like he said about the trees, we actually have a lot of people that will call and say, well, can I plant a tree in so-and-so's honor that's just passed away? And right now we have a couple people that want benches, but we have had people plant trees. Marianne Morell,
Yeah.
Chrissy, instead of doing a Paul Harris Fellow for when she was president of Rotary, she wants to have a tree planted, and she wants to put it out here. So we do get those questions a lot, is can we plant a tree? And we don't know, where do you wanna plant it? We don't have any, like,
Right.
any guidelines.
We also should have a basis of what we're planting where.
That-
Well,
So
see-
like they wanna plant a tree, but we need to know the
Yeah.
proper tree that's going in the proper
Yeah,
place.
like we had that tree photography contest a couple years ago, and Lexi Santiago, she wanted a weeping willow tree, and that's what she got for winning the contest. Well, we put it on that lot right by the fire station, because we were gonna make that into some kind of, that's a green area that we have by the fire station. And then when American Bloom came in town, they were like, no, you gotta move it across the street, it needs to be by a water source. I mean, we can always transplant, but had we known that,
Right,
we didn't realize it would be better
sure.
2 feet across the road.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to, is a lot of what I hear, the negativity and things like that, it's just because you guys are seeing the negative consequences of it, but those were poor practices that led up to that. So if we can start from scratch, which we basically are going to, and we can do proper practices, the right tree, the right place, we can have things in place, we can have a city-approved tree list, which I already have generated, ones that are good for the city. I have ones that are invasive that would not be approved. But it would have to be talked about, it would have to be put together. There would have to be somebody to overlook it, you know, and I'm not even suggesting myself, it could be anybody qualified. We could have a city forester or a tree warden, and some cities call it that. I really don't prefer that name, it sounds kinda negative when you hear warden. And I don't want people to roll their eyes when somebody's coming to look at their trees, I want them to know that that person is there to provide information and help them, not be negative. But the current tree ordinance that we have with the city is no tree planted within 10 feet of the road.
Correct.
And the other negativity that I've heard, beyond the sidewalk, is, well, what about our water lines and our gas lines and things like that? Well, the science and the math on that is pretty simple. So, our frost line for our area, and every state has a different frost line based on temperature. Our current frost line in Northeast Ohio is 32 inches. All water, gas, and utilities are supposed to be planted at least 6 inches below the frost line. That puts us at 38 inches. Well, trees, 80% of a tree's root system is in the first 2 feet of the soil. A lot of people think that the root system of a tree goes just as far down as the top does, and that's nowhere near true. They want to go out. So if we can get them to go out, and we can have root wells, as we call them, that protect those utility lines, we won't have to worry about those utilities for a very, very long time. The utility, the life expectancy of that utility would probably pass before that tree would affect it.
Yes and no, and I'm gonna say, the only thing is, if you have a water break, you gotta dig it up.
Mm-hmm.
The
If
tree.
there's a tree on top of it.
That's something we would
Because
address
that-
at that time.
Yeah.
And,
We have a
and,
lot of old water lines, and we have breaks every winter.
yeah,
There are numerous breaks.
Well,
within
my
the
other
city.
question would be, Ohio Edison has an easement underneath their lines.
they only have an easement for utility lines and maintenance. They don't have an easement where you can't plant.
That is not true,
That's not
not
true.
here.
I used to work for the utility, and
They
I
made us move them,
Yes.
so I
And
know.
and they stopped us from planting a tree that big. They told
Correct.
me, you planted, somebody.
What
the neighbor-
species was it?
No,
It
it didn't
didn't
matter.
matter to them. It was underneath their utility lines, and
They made
said,
us move
make
30
that person
trees
move that tree.
at the credit union.
If you guys
And
were,
they were trees that weren't gonna grow more than 6, 8 foot high. They were weeping cherry trees. We had to move them all.
I'd be interested to talk to whoever that was that said that, because I have 3 very good friends that are utility foresters for First Energy right now. And I've worked for the utility and with them, and they do have an approved list of trees that you can plant on it right away.
Okay. Yeah,
So I'd
they,
be interested.
All I know is I got a call and they said, go
Yeah.
talk to the neighbor, cause one of the residents up on Ranch Boulevard planted a tree, and honestly, it was only about that high underneath their power lines.
no, they made us move them at the
We
credit,
had,
the credit
I
union.
had to make that
Yeah.
resident move the tree.
I know, cause I had to plant them, and then I had to pull them out, and then I had to replant them.
Well, what are your goals, like, what are you thinking? Are you thinking, like, putting stuff at the parks that we have, expanding our green space, or are you looking at putting trees right on the road? Like, what are,
Both.
okay.
Both, yeah. Yeah, because if you look, there are some really large sections of the city. You can look all the way down the road and there's nothing.
You can go from Fifth Street up to Young Sampoint Road and there's hardly any trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're doing that project on Fifth Street
Yeah, it's all private
with the
property.
safer routes to school.
Still, they can plant trees though
And
if
I
they
know
have.
they just put a
They
lot
sure
of trees
can,
down at
but we're not
Youngstown.
stopping them from doing
No.
that now,
Okay.
you know
But
what I
they've
mean?
never been
Grow.
encouraged to do so.
I don't know if it's a special tree that the roots only grow
Yeah,
a certain way,
yeah, there's
but they
certain
just
ones.
planted a bunch, but they're also used as traffic calming measures to
Correct.
slow cars down.
Yeah, that's what part of my video mentioned. There's more than one study. I think the last I looked, there's like 6 studies that traffic speeds on tree-lined streets are at a minimum 3 miles per hour slower. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but 3 miles per hour can be the difference between someone getting hit and not getting hit or ran over. So, I mean, the benefit of it is obviously there. And the way that the other cities and towns that I've worked with is I always try to tell them, make a list, just like our parents used to tell us when we were kids, the pros and the cons. And if the pros outweigh the cons, it's worth the effort.
Well, I think the first step would be doing some kind of tree inventory.
I would agree. I think that needs to occur, probably, not only just for this proposal, but for the city as a whole, I think that needs to happen. And then, you know, we can decide like, okay, the city owns this tree and they're responsible if something happens, but that one's not ours, you know, whatever the case. But like I said, it's hard to start and go somewhere, even if you have 200 ideas, if we don't know where we're at.
Yeah, and we'd have to look at like different areas of town, what parts we think may work and what parts would be completely out. Cause we just did the project with Rotary and everyone on Overlook, where we put those trees down the middle, and I can't wait till those get big.
Oh, people love them already, I mean,
And
since we
Just
put them
Overlook
in.
in general, that whole
Yeah.
street with the trees, it's just.
I have my
beautiful.
fair share of trees.
You do. You do, but that's what I mean, we'd have to see like where.
You're pulling your weight.
it'll work.
Sure.
I am, I know.
I took mine.
Sure. 3 of that 10%
figured
coverage we had
had
to
it.
take.
Yeah, and it's important to know too, you know, like I briefly mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's the heat umbrella effect is massive. So it was, I think it was 5 years ago in New York City, they did a recording of a sidewalk, and I have a video of it, I don't have it with me. They did a recording of a sidewalk on a summer day, and the sidewalk was 123 degrees. Well, then they walked underneath a tree that was planted within the sidewalk in a tree well, and it was done the right way, and it was 87 degrees. I mean, that is a massive difference in temperature.
Sure.
And whether we like it or not, the climate is changing. It's getting warmer, our storms are getting stronger, you know, things are changing. So with all of the population increases that are constantly happening, the world's population continues to climb, and we keep cutting more and more trees down. So the only way that we can naturally manage our air and filter carbon and sequester that carbon and produce new oxygen is through trees and green spaces. And Struthers is very, very low in that category. Even with the negative, the positive definitely outweighs it.
Okay.
Does the, in order to be claimed a tree city, do they ask for an inventory like that?
They haven't.
If you want money, you have to have it.
Yeah, if you wanna apply for things, then yes, but they haven't asked for it. They'll ask, how many trees were planted this year, how many trees were taken down, how many trees have we maintenanced.
What's the cost on it, in doing an inventory on a city like ours?
I'd probably have to get you the parcels.
Yeah,
We have a lot of,
that's hard for me to
trees have
say
a lot
without
of
knowing what
parcels.
I'm looking at.
I can get them to you tomorrow.
Yeah, I can give you a ballpark, I mean, it's public information, doesn't matter to me.
Sure.
I did Roosevelt Park, that took me about 10 and a half hours, and it was like $850. So it's just all about manpower and hours and how long it's gonna take, and obviously that includes the clerical things and stuff too. So,
Okay.
Now,
it just
we,
depends on the
we had to
workload.
shut down our memorial for a while because of the
while.
tree service there.
Yes,
Yes.
because
You
those,
said most of those trees are in bad shape.
A lot of the trees, not directly around the memorial, but those have mostly been handled at this point.
There's a bunch of them that fell, if you go to the,
Yes.
if you're
Yeah, but-
facing the memorial to the right.
But the thing is that we cut that grass, and if a tree falls on our driver,
Yes.
who's responsible for it?
I don't know if you.
Well,
we
see,
are,
that's
we
tough.
have a new MOU with
Yeah.
with
Okay.
Aqua.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
We just got another MOU with Aqua.
Now, this is similar to what we did with the comprehensive plan. We needed that plan, we needed that comprehensive plan to be able to apply for other things and other grants. This is similar with the inventory, is something we could use to be able to get more money in for this
Yeah, to
specific.
get something started.
Yeah.
I can get those to you tomorrow.
Oh, whenever you're ready. Yeah, I'd be happy to help, guys. I really would, and I know that there's negativity and there's thoughts and concerns and things like that, but again, I would be very interested to see what a normal serviceable concrete life would be, because if I planted a tree today and there's a brand new sidewalk next to it, that sidewalk won't be effective for at least 20 years, at least.
You're saying from the tree roots,
Correct.
by the time the roots actually got large enough to impact it?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we would have to kind of, you know, you gotta look at that, and then also, if we're planting the right tree in the right way, that sidewalk's not gonna be effective for a very long time. 20 years, probably times 3.
So
Okay, I'm gonna need a motion for an adjournment of the, community development.
Everybody
Committee.
is good? No more questions?
Thanks
Yeah,
for coming.
everybody's good,
Yeah, thank
yeah,
you for coming, yeah, very informative.
yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I could probably, text you
Okay.
the video.
Meeting adjourned.
Meeting
I might
adjourned,
be able
yeah,
to do that.
I'll wait 1
Yeah,
minute and I'll call for
absolutely.
finance and legislation.
okay,
Charles, thank you.
Thank you, absolutely.
coming.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me,
yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Have a good one, guys.
I know.
You too. Let's call for a finance and legislation meeting. Mr. Burnside?
Here.
Mr. Ballack?
Here.
Mr. Bigley is here. We have 2 to 3 million ordinances to go over today. Let's just start with part-time employees. Now, I'm gonna read through, we have 2, 4, 6, we have 7. I'm gonna read through all 7. Then we'll vote on it, then we'll just go through. I'll sign all 7, hand them to you, you could sign all 7, you could sign all 7. That's probably the cleanest way to do it. Is that okay?
Yeah, however you want to do
Okay.
it.
First one, an ordinance creating the position of part-time civilian clerk dispatch in the police department, repealing ordinance number 22029, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance creating the position of non-classified part-time police officers, setting hours and wages for said positions, repealing ordinance number 24-046, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An emergency creating the position of non-classified part-time deputy tax commissioner clerk, setting the hours, wages for said position, repealing ordinance number 24-047, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance creating the position of non-classified part-time drivers for the elderly van, setting hours and wages for said position, repealing ordinance number 24-048, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance granting and establishing an hourly rate for part-time paid firemen and setting an amount to be paid to part-time paid firemen for attendance at training meetings, repealing ordinance number 24-049, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance creating the position of non-classified part-time park laborer and non-classified part-time seasonal laborer, setting hours and wages for said position, repealing ordinance number 24-050, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance creating the position of non-classified seasonal part-time street laborers, setting hours and wages for said position, repealing ordinance number 24-051, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. Need a motion to bring those out.
Motion to bring them up.
Second that motion?
Okay.
Yeah, when it comes up.
Okay.
Bob, I'm gonna go ahead and start reading through the next section, if that's all right. That was for part-time cover sheet. Okay, now we're on to full-time employees, and there's twice as many. And this is an ordinance establishing the position and salaries of all elected officials retroactive to January 1st, 2025, for said employees, repealing ordinance number 24-033, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith declaring an emergency. An ordinance establishing the position, salary, and employment provisions of department heads, a non-classified service appointment by the mayor, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, for said employees, excluding superintendent wastewater plant, repealing ordinance number 24-034, and any ordinance inconsistent with and declaring an emergency. An ordinance establishing the position, salaries, employment provisions of superintendent of wastewater plant department head, a non-classified service appointed by the mayor, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, repealing ordinance number 24-035, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance establishing the position, salary, and employment provisions of street department, a civil service position appointed by the mayor, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, for said employee, excluding the working foreman, repealing ordinance number 24-036, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance establishing the position, salary, and employment provisions of the mayor's executive assistant, a non-classified service appointed by the mayor, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, for said employee, repealing ordinance number 24-038, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance establishing the position, salary, employment provisions of the deputy auditor, a non-classified service appointed by the auditor, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, for said employee, repealing ordinance number 24-039, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance establishing the position, salary, employment of clerk of council, a non-certified service appointed by the city of Struthers, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, for said employee, repealing ordinance number 24-040, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance establishing the position, salary, employment provision of the secretary to the law director, a non-classified service appointed by the law director, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, for said employee, repealing ordinance number 24-041, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance establishing the position, salary, employment provisions of the police chief secretary, a non-classified service appointed by the mayor, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, for the said employee, repealing ordinance number 24-042, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance establishing the position, salaries, employment provisions of code enforcement director, a non-classified service appointed by the mayor, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, for said employee, repealing ordinance number 24-037, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance establishing position, salary, and employment provisions of full-time park caretaker/laborer, a non-classified service appointed by the mayor, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, for said employee, repealing ordinance number 24-043, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. An ordinance establishing the position, salary, employment provisions of building maintenance person, a non-classified service appointed by the mayor, retroactive to January 1st, 2025, for said employee, repealing ordinance number 24-044, and any ordinance inconsistent herewith and declaring an emergency. Motion to bring it out.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
If I'm permitted?
Sure.
I would like to see all these ordinances that 90% reduction in the first year. I'd like to see that removed. I just had to hire a custodian at a rate of $13 an hour, and that's pathetically low. His full rate is low enough as it is at $15 an hour, and to tell him that his first year he has to work at $13 an hour is sad. And it only applies mostly to our clerical workers. All our wastewater, police, fire are all covered by a union contract. So that 90% or whatever reduction there is only when we're trying to replace clerical workers.
What position are we discussing?
He's talking about
But just about any of the
any clerical, but
clerical
he's
or
talking about building
custodian.
maintenance.
Yeah, building maintenance.
Okay, but it says here, building maintenance makes $33,000 a year. It says it's 1630.
Yeah, he's not starting there.
You're starting 10% less.
He's starting at $13 and some cents an hour.
But here's where I'm off. 1633. If you took 10% off of that, that's only $1.63. So he's really starting
Well-
at $15 an hour, almost.
No, when we did it, when I figured out his wage, he was at 13, that's what I told him
Well,
when I
they're
hired
probably
him.
going off the old wage.
Yeah, it started at what,
So, yeah, that might be the new wage, so
That's the
he
new
might
wage
bump
for
up.
Because
but-
it did get
Oh,
brought
yeah.
up 5% last year.
Yeah.
I requested this from Megan, just so we know basically
Exactly.
where
Yeah.
anybody has started, where they've went, just so we're all educated, cause we're constantly like, well, didn't we bring that person up this time, or that time, or this time? We have it all here.
Yeah.
I'll have Megan run it off so everybody has a copy for
Yeah.
the last 5 years, what position raises were given.
Yeah, you're right, cause when I hired him, I
You
had
went
to
off
hire
of
him
that.
at the last year's
Okay.
salary. But, that being said, even at $16 an hour, it's kinda low, you know, so,
well, that being said too, Megan brought it to my attention that we wanna bring up all the secretaries to what she makes. She's been here 18 years, considered by time and grade as a master clerk. And she felt a little slighted at just getting 3%.
But there was a big raise before that.
But we brought her up,
Years ago,
you know,
I thought.
we've been bringing people up to match other communities that we are able to do that
That's kinda
for.
something I wanted to bring up too, Bob. I over the last 6 years, that's why I wanted this. So everybody could look at it, and we could see where we were 6 years ago. Some of these people in 6 years have been brought
A
up
lot.
33, 40%.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
That, we can't sustain that.
Oh, I agree.
What we need to do is, basically like the mayor said, when we do 3% a year, that needs to be blanket. Everybody has been brought up quite a bit, and I think everybody should take a look at this, and if you see somewhere who hasn't been brought up, highlight it. And let's, once and for all,
Keep track
get
of it.
people to where they need to be, and we're all just dealing with, you know, a 2 or 3% annual
But there are
raise.
certain positions that have gotten
Correct.
multiple 5,000 here and 5,000 here.
I agree.
That has jumped significantly in some other positions.
And have not. I agree. I'm not disagreeing.
I'm just looking at, when I'm trying to hire people, and I have to tell you, well, you gotta start, you know,
Well, see, me and
at this
you,
low rate, plus even lower.
we somewhat, this is one of those things where administration and council, we are supposed to be on opposite sides of the ball.
Right.
Because I'm supposed to keep this as low as I can within reason.
Right.
You're supposed to hire the best people you can hire for the job. So it's okay, we're gonna have to figure out how to work together to mitigate it, but this is one thing where your job leads you down one path, my job's lead me down another. Somewhere we're gonna have to figure out the middle, you know what I mean? And that's why, if everybody takes a look at this, the one person that I know of that I think is low is the law director. We did bring him up at one point.
Yep.
But you are looking at a guy who makes $48,000 a year, and he has to have a law degree to do the job that he does here. That's one that I honestly believe is low. But the rest of these, anything we can change, we can make retroactive. So everybody has this now. Go over it, highlight it, you know. See who you think is way low, see who you think is high, see who you think that we have brought up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna tell you, I don't think you have anybody on there that's high. You may have a few
No, well,
that are low, but there's
Yes.
nobody in there that's overpaid.
I just want, we always talk about it, I just wanted facts in front of us, because there's been a lot of times where I'm like, didn't we bring this person up, or didn't we bring that person up? So, I do believe that if any people could digest this, highlight it, we can discuss it, anything could be made retroactive, if somebody has an issue with it.
I'm gonna put it in Excel form, I just hadn't had.
I think this is fine, this
Yeah,
is
that's
plenty what we need, don't waste any more time on it, cause I'm
Okay.
sure this took you long enough,
Yeah.
you know.
You gotta sign that one.
That's from the first batch, you forgot.
I will tell you that when I asked our auditors what an hourly rate is for certain positions, I'm told there is no hourly rate, you're a salary employee, and you don't have established hours, and that's what I was told when I asked what my hourly rate was. They said, you don't have an hourly rate because
You're on call
you're,
24 hours a day.
Hours a day.
And I'm sure that applies to our fire chief and our police chief also.
Correct.
I don't think you can calculate that as an hourly rate. Their salary, and they come out when.
I think they kinda come to an
There-
average of
there
what it
is an
would be
hourly-
like an hourly.
There's an hourly rate established in
Sure.
case they get paid overtime.
Right,
But as far as the auditor's office goes.
but I
it's
think
salary.
their salary is kinda based off of what an hourly rate would be.
No, when they go for severance or something, and they have to prorate this, or even that you're hired part-time and they prorate it, they don't prorate it on 2,080 hours, they prorate it on the number of years left in the, number of days left in the year. Cause you are paid so much per day, and that includes Saturday and Sunday. So they don't look at,
I believe
An hourly rate.
this is a good tool for us though to see.
oh yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, I think when you look on here, you'll see where we were 4 and 6
And-
years ago. Mary, you came in
Yeah,
what,
and you're
20?
looking at, there's 2 years here that.
Nobody got a raise.
Nobody got a raise.
100%.
So
Right.
you're looking at 2 years.
But also,
where
if you
it's
factor
completely
that in and
stagnant.
you say they should have got a 2%, it should be 4% higher, and I get that. But on most of these positions, we've made up for it very substantially in the last few years. Some of these have a 12% increase 1 year. I really think we did as right as we can possibly do by our employees for what we're dealing with financially in the budget. I really, really do.
When it says same here,
No raise.
No
you
raise.
didn't get
No
nothing
raise.
at that
Yeah.
time, okay,
That's 2 years.
okay.
Okay. Everybody good? Then we could just, like I said, if you see something you wanna discuss next week, we can put it in, make it retroactive, and it would be the
Yeah,
same
right, we can do
thing.
it
We- you
to that
know,
to anything.
Correct.
So I make a motion to bring those out.
Yeah, so in other words, some of
Second that.
these were brought up just because of what Megan was making. So when I look at that, is that the reason? Like,
I don't understand what you mean.
well, because I remember when Christy was here, she wanted her secretary brought up, am I correct?
The deputy auditor,
Yes.
if you looked at the duties that the deputy auditor performs, I don't think you even question it.
Okay, but what, that's what I'm saying, I'm just saying that like, cause she's about the exact, she is the exact same as Megan, so, okay.
Well, I also think though too, we have to take into consideration, listen, what somebody deserves and the position that they do and what we can give them,
Right.
Oh, yeah,
they're two
absolutely.
different
And
things.
then that's,
And especially on here, when we look, how much we've brought these up in the last 4 to 6 years, we've really done what we can do. I mean, that is the truth. Some
Well,
of
and
these.
in all honesty, like I've been doing my job as a dental hygienist for over 30 years, and a girl gets out of school and she's gonna make as much as I do.
Right.
It's the,
And
it's the job,
It's
the
something you have to
position,
deal with,
so,
yeah.
I mean, I understand,
But I also
grateful for
understand,
what Megan
I
does,
understand Bob and the mayor's side of it too, because they're in charge of the hiring. So for them, it's a little bit harder because they still are in charge of hiring these people who have to work for that wage.
Yeah.
So we are, but
then
I,
add on the only 90% of the contracts, it makes it 10 times.
Yeah, so
harder.
do we need that?
that's
That's
what
what
I'm
he's
saying,
asking.
I'm saying.
I mean,
for
that's a
you
tough
need that?
For the
sale for me
employees
though.
that it applies to, I think it's really detrimental.
That's a tough sale for me though, if Megan decides to leave and she's been here, how long have you been here? 18 years. And somebody comes on the first day making what she has been after 18 years. That, to me, they're gonna have to learn her position. You know what I mean?
But
So
that's what
I
I'm saying, though.
understand that.
Are you paying based on the person, or are you paying based on the
Yeah, but-
position and the responsibility?
I'm a position guy, that's for sure.
Position earns a salary.
I mean,
Don't look at the employee.
that is the truth, because if your employee isn't performing, then you need to find another employee,
Yeah.
that's just the truth. The position pays what it pays, and if that person does a great job,
Why
I
is
get
that
it, we
number
wanna give
there?
them as much as we can to keep them.
Oh, I was
But we
just
also
showing you
can't
guys
overpay the
what you guys
position.
brought up.
No.
That is
Change
true.
it to
I don't
like
think we
10%.
overpaid.
Like,
No,
I
I'm
just
not
wanted to
saying
show
that,
you
but I'm
guys.
saying, it
I was
could
looking
get
at
to
an
that
Excel
point,
spreadsheet.
we,
I didn't
if
have
we
it
just
all.
go over this, we'll see that
Gotcha.
truly,
just showing, 'cause
we have
everyone was
done
supposed to get
very
3%,
much the last
but you
4
only
years.
brought up the
It's not,
two positions.
it wasn't up to
You know what I mean?
us
Gotcha.
the years prior to that, where there
was
weren't
only
So this
raises,
that
one
one
where
was
their,
actually
And I'm
brought
gonna
up.
tell
their
you,
pay did lag behind.
Yeah, that
and
was the
there will be
treasurer.
times in the
plus
future where
10%.
the
No.
raises
Or
will be
10%
10%
total.
frozen
total,
again,
yeah.
because
Got it.
that's just
Yeah.
government.
Okay.
Yes,
You know, so that's why you
Yeah,
get
what am I
raises
doing
when you
with
can, because in the
I
future,
don't know where the
you
top
will
is.
have to ask employees.
So could it
to
be
take
changed
raises.
instead of a year to like 90 days or something? Like, is there some sort of
Huh?
stipulation until you learn the position?
there could be anything you want, but
that's what I'm
I
saying, I
just,
mean-
like I would say, I would,
Because a year is a long time.
but Megan, we have given,
No, I understand.
Yeah,
that.
I'm just saying, at certain times, we gave bigger raises to catch her up, she's been here a long time. the next person, and I understand I'm saying that it follows the position more, but we have given things to keep her here because we wanted her here,
Yeah.
right? A new person coming in, you kinda earn that again, even if it is the same position,
Yeah, but
you know what I
I
mean?
don't agree with that.
Well,
But
I
that's
mean,
what you
but
can't-
you don't agree with that because you're put through it at work, but you don't
Well, I
like
don't
it
know.
about your work.
But you can't
Well,
do.
I mean, I love my job,
Sure.
but I'm just telling
But,
you
but
that
do you feel fair that a same
it's
person
a
out of high
wage,
school?
it's a salary.
I
It
understand.
doesn't matter whether, they're still doing my job, although I could probably be better, you know, but that's
Okay.
what they're making, and
Yeah.
I mean, you
No,
can't, you can't have somebody come in at doing that job at $13 an hour, I mean,
What job?
Maintenance.
maintenance or
You
whatever.
can't?
He left a $17 an hour job in maintenance to come here.
When you have people working
And
at
I was
Target
lucky I
making
found them.
$15 an hour,
$17.50 an
yeah, I
hour.
mean.
Target is a corporation that can justify it through their profits. We are a
But we're talking about
municipality.
1 year
I
too.
know,
You know
we're
what I
not- we're not
mean?
talking about-
You can't say.
You can't
I don't
compare
think
the
you could
city to
say,
Target,
well, this
come on.
position, we're gonna pay based
Yeah, I
off the
still
position
don't
and the
think that that's-
responsibilities,
But-
and these positions,
did that
we're gonna
person
pay
know what he was
based off the
applying
person.
for?
Like, you,
He does.
Yeah.
He-
Absolutely, and he agreed to it, and I was very thankful that he did,
Yeah.
cause honestly, I thought he was gonna tell me no.
Well, I mean, again, we're not trying to shortchange people, but at the end of the day, there's a learning curve to a portion of these positions too.
Sure.
As an employer, are they gonna get out of a new person what they get out of you with 20 or 30 years
So when somebody
experience?
comes on council, is that gonna be the same thing? Cause it's still a learning curve, I mean,
Oh, it's
No,
definitely a
true.
learning curve,
But it doesn't
But-
apply.
but
but it's
count-
also an elected
Yeah.
position.
But it
that-
doesn't
That would be
apply
the
to
difference between a hired position.
But if somebody came in and replaced her, this place would never run as smooth as it does now.
No.
Exactly.
Never.
council. It would take a while, yes.
It would, and,
It
and I
would.
mean, we're, again,
But-
I don't think 10% is a killer for your first year.
but you're doing it across the whole board.
It used to be
I mean,
15%, if you guys remember,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
stepped up over 3 years, it was
No, it came in
15.
at 4 years.
Okay, so it was 15%, 10%,
Okay, it was,
5%, that's how it went,
Yeah.
you weren't brought up to rate till 4 years.
Right.
But if you look at other structures, look at, any union, you get hired on a union, the guy who is there longer than you makes more than you, and that catches up as you go until you hit a top rate. So it isn't like we're doing anything out of the
Well,
ordinary.
I think
But
it's,
we're not in an apprentice program like most unions are. You're in an apprentice program, you get paid so much, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. We're putting a person into position and saying, here's the job, do it, goodbye. We're not training them. We're just
That's
throwing them into a
management's
job.
fault if they're not training them.
Who's gonna train our next replacement when she retires? Who's doing the training?
Well,
We're
so
talking
who
about,
trained
we're
you?
talking about
Amelia.
in
Amelia.
the city.
We kept
That's-
Amelia on to train her.
Yeah.
That's,
That's what we have
that's
to
the
do.
management's job, to train them employees.
True,
yeah.
but who's
So-
going to training?
I
Has
don't know,
to be
who do you
somebody that
train, who
knows
do you
the
train
job.
these, who do you train these employees when they
You are
come in?
replacing employees
Who do you
with
train?
another employee where you only have one person knows the job. So,
There should always be more than one person that knows the job.
I mean, you
No.
only have one deputy auditor.
This
When
ain't a-
she's gone, who's training the next deputy auditor?
It should be the auditor,
It would be the auditor, right?
Right.
right. Somebody gotta be training people as they come aboard.
But even with elected officials,
What we did
That's
when
not
she
a
came
necessity.
in is we had Amelia come down, right?
Yep.
We brought her down here to train her
So,
until she was comfortable
but what
to
if
do.
Amelia said no? Then what?
What if the,
It's not it's not that person's responsibility to train. It is ours as administration to
And we
find
do.
somebody to train, and we do. But if Chrissy decides tomorrow she's not gonna run, who's gonna train the auditor?
there should be a formula set up.
I know.
Well, so then.
Or no,
let's
we're trying to get an
use,
auditor from a different,
And
city
that's
that knows how to
That's
do
not-
it.
but
Yeah.
That's not
That's
that
not-
That's not
person's
even ideal, though.
responsibility.
So you
to
wanna
train.
just
That's
give these new
ours.
people the top step without any
Let-
training?
let me
and just
explain
do
that.
the
If
job?
there's, even
if
if
they're
there's
not, they're,
Real quick though, I get what you're saying,
and we
but
are with the
yeah,
rest of the
but
positions. This
when
is
you're
just
saying it's not
clerical.
their responsibility, who deals out their responsibilities?
We do. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it
saying-
is our responsibility.
I'm
but
saying
it's not
Oh, yeah.
that you're gonna
So-
tell them that
so-
it is their responsibility
when she
to train the
leaves-
next person.
when she leaves, one of you are gonna come in and train the next person in that position?
You think I know how to do her job?
No, you don't, that's my point.
Or you get the new person to come in 2 weeks or whatever, and have Megan show them the ropes before.
Well,
Unless she
Megan's
walks
done
out of
it.
here.
Say, I'm out of here, I'm not.
If you had a replacement
Do that.
in
No one
that, in
had,
that
that's
time
not
period.
that's not the employee's responsibility to do that.
It
But
is
that's
if you
what's-
say it is.
Right, but
That's
this,
right.
this is what we're saying, most of these jobs that we have in the city, the police, the fire, all that, they start at what they start at, there's no stepping stone. We're just saying there's a couple positions, there's clerical and there's maintenance, and that's it, those are the only
Do you,
stipulations.
I'm
that
asking
have
you
I
to
think
be-
that-
but that's also a
versus
union.
yeah.
I think that
Right.
Bob's point, it doesn't necessarily boil down to the 10% thing. I think that he's, maybe this is more from the angle of, that this position should pay more than it does, period, to start with.
That's,
And that's a different story. I mean, if it started out at $15 an hour and worked towards $16 an hour or something like that. But I think Bob's point is that paying somebody $13 an hour for a maintenance position is just isn't right. Maybe we should look at just bringing up that base salary to start with.
I understand what that, from that
Right.
position, but you have to look at it this way too. The person starts 10% less, they put in 1 year, that means next year, you got a 10% raise, plus
Right.
whatever raise you actually got. So we're asking you to put forth 1 year of your time at a slightly lesser rate, 10% isn't a crazy less rate, you're gonna get brought up next year, plus whatever the raise is, and in that year, you're gonna learn the job, and you're gonna
Well-
get acclimated to it.
Well, it's
That's
all
my
relative,
position on
you
it.
know.
You know what I mean?
10% of somebody's income when their income is very small is a big deal.
I don't start it-
10% to somebody that's making $100,000 a year. $10,000 is a bigger chunk of money, but
Agreed, yeah.
$90,000, you can make ends meet with that. And I think just going to Bob's
agree.
point,
Yeah, I mean,
right from the get-go, it's like, should this position be increased just out of the fact that, and this is a maintenance position?
The last one we hired for, yes.
Okay, I mean, to
started
pay
with-
somebody, a maintenance man, $13 an hour, what do you think you're gonna get?
A maintenance man.
You think you're gonna get somebody that's really qualified for $13 an hour?
I mean, I
But
guess I'm asking.
he accepted the job.
It doesn't mean he's it doesn't mean he's that good at it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well,
like,
we'll end up spending
If he's
more
not
money
that good at it, then
hiring
why are we gonna give him more money?
Yeah.
Right?
well, I suppose, yeah, but by the same token, it's like, if I could go get a job at Lowe's and make $15 an hour,
that's your choice.
Yeah.
what am I gonna,
Again,
there again, it's like,
Choice, but then you're not gonna get anybody here, so.
and I think that's
Or then
that's
we'll
the
get
bottom
somebody
line.
We'll get somebody that's unqualified that we don't necessarily wanna hire, and then we're gonna pay somebody to come fix everything we need fixed, or
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make
You
any
we're
can't
gonna
sense.
end up paying the money anyway.
First of all, what you need to look at is what kind of credentials do they have coming in here? Do they have
But
any?
somebody with credentials is not coming in for this.
You're not coming in for $13 an
No,
hour.
no,
But
they're
you
not.
gotta know something about the job.
Right,
You
and
can't just hire somebody that's been a baker in a bake shop and come in and run a lawnmower. Oh, I never ran one before, let's give them the top step.
No, and I
You
mean,
gotta have some kind of credentials or some background.
I think we got off track, and I think I helped it along the way. I'll be honest, bringing up things like a union and things like that, because we're not. This is a city. This is a municipality. People work at a municipality. Generally, it pays less. Generally, it caters to their life.
Exactly.
Megan, if you have to get out of here to go to your daughter's whatever, you can go. For that,
Yeah.
there is a slight pay decrease that
Yeah.
you're expected to deal with. And if you can't, or if somebody else can't, I'm the first guy who's gonna say, I understand you had to leave. I understand this didn't jive with your schedule. There's another person out there that wants that job where you can go to your daughter's recital. You can leave when you have to. And we're gonna have to kind of play on that a little
Well,
bit. It's
everybody is, and I know nobody wants to hear this, but everybody's replaceable. I
Yeah.
don't care who you are.
100%.
So she's great at her job, but that doesn't mean that the next person can't come in and do it too. And
Yeah, we
I'm
all
good at doing this.
Correct.
So we're
Listen,
all replaceable, so it doesn't mean that, I don't know, I mean, to me, making $13 an hour doing a job in the city,
again, you're making $13 an hour for your first year. We're arguing over 10% on the first year, and if you guys feel like it should be changed, but no, just 4 short years ago, it was 4 years that you gave up a portion of your pay until you got the full rate.
Right.
And it was 15%, not 10.
Doesn't mean it was right.
No, but we've already corrected a huge portion of it. In 4
I don't know
years.
anybody that starts out at
So
10%
I'd
less.
like you to correct
I mean,
the rest of the portion of it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, come back to me in another year and we'll talk about it again then. But all of these jumps, I get it. Everybody was behind. We've jumped them up as much as we can. We can't do it. It's got to be spread out over time. Does everybody agree with that? I mean, we
If
can't
we
just,
do
this
anything,
guy
I
made
would lower
29,000.
the length and time.
Yes.
Every job has a 90-day probationary
yeah.
period, give them
There
that.
you go.
That would
That's
help,
probably
because you
more
have
fair
90
than a
days to
year.
learn.
I would say.
If that's how you guys feel,
I mean, if we're gonna change it, I would say that would be the
90 days at least,
minimum.
Yeah.
if that's how.
That's a fair compromise.
But with that being said, I think in the future, we all have to kind of look to say, we're dealing with the position, not the employee. Because that means next time somebody argues for their employee and says, so-and-so is great, we need to raise her
But the
and give her
position
more
doesn't
money. But
qualify.
the position doesn't qualify for that,
Right.
and when she leaves and the person comes in that's not so great, we're
Yeah.
still paying him that wage, him or her.
Right.
So I think from now on, there can't be any more, this person's great, they deserve a raise in this position. The dollar amount stays with the position.
I agree.
Right.
Agreed?
I would agree with that, yes.
Because no matter how good, again, the maintenance person is, we can't pay him $100,000 a year because
Yeah.
that isn't a position that pays $100,000 a year.
No.
Right.
That we just
But
have
you
to keep it
also have
on
to
that.
look at, you don't know in the next year or 2 years if their responsibilities will have changed.
But that's up to
Like
you.
that's
But
what
that's-
happened with our assistant.
Mhm.
That went from 2 positions to just her handling 3 people. And it was 2
But
people
in the
handling
past, there
2.
was never an assistant
Yeah.
What, for,
for the mayor.
Well, there was
Yeah.
always a second
Secretary.
person in the
She
office.
had the
But
secretary
yeah, but she
and-
wasn't considered an assistant.
No.
she was the secretary
Right.
and then they had 2
Right.
office people in there handling 2 people. Now you have 1 office person handling 3 people. So the responsibilities of the job have changed.
So I guess but what Bob is trying to say is, you're changing the responsibilities. You're expecting us to change the pay with those responsibilities,
But that also
correct?
In
came
the
with,
future, if that
yeah,
happens.
if that happens, if we
If it
go in,
happens.
if something happens and we're like, oh, this is gonna triple this
And I-
person's workload, or this is
I would
gonna.
also say, and I agree with that, and when you first made that position, we assessed it then
Yes,
and we
that's what
brought
I'm
that
saying,
position
yes,
up.
that's.
And in the
that's
future,
why-
I would say, from administration standpoint, dealing with this council, we've been fair.
Yes.
And I feel like we are responsive to a
Yes.
lot of the things that you guys bring in here, especially with
100%.
salaries.
Yes.
And I would expect that moving forward. Nobody here has, I don't think, ever been unreasonable. The only one you can maybe point the unreasonable finger at would be me, but
No,
that.
I agree with you in a lot of aspects. I think all raises should be appointed to the position, not a person. Because when you start appointing it to a person, that's when you fall behind, and then it gets harder and harder to fill the position in the future. So you should always give raises to the position, not the person, alright?
But if the person is,
That's dealt a different way administratively with corrective action if they're not doing their job.
That 100%.
You know, that's a different.
If this
aspect.
person's doing a bad job,
You
Mike,
don't do
they
it
should be
with-
disciplined, or we should be looking for somebody else to do that job.
Yes,
that's been talked about in the past before, and that never happened.
well, that's, different administrations run things differently.
Yeah, I see that.
Okay, so everybody has this, again, if there's something on here that stands
Take your
out,
copy.
nah, Megan made it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's done, you guys are signing that. Let's go to, the next one is an ordinance amending chapter 521, section 521.06 of codified ordinance of Struthers, Ohio, to revise regulations concerning sidewalks and declaring an emergency. Motion to bring
bring
it.
it up.
Second?
Second that.
All right, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $1,000 to Youngstown Class B Baseball, Inc. for an outfield advertisement sign for the city of Struthers for year 2025 and declaring an emergency. Motion to bring it out.
Same sign? It's been there.
Yeah, I don't think we're.
Motion to bring it up.
Second that.
Okay, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and safety service director to enter into an agreement with MS Consultants Inc. to perform all professional services for 2025 Bob Seenway resurfacing, including final design, bidding, and construction, administration, inspection services.
We're hiring them for the whole year?
No,
No,
this is
for
just
Bob
Just
Seenway.
This
for
is
Bob.
just Bob Seenway.
So we're
These are
still
the OPWC
opening up to other engineering services, okay.
MS is gonna
Motion to
do
bring
a
it up.
resurfacing
Second.
this year. Bob
Second
Seenway
that.
done
Okay.
the street.
Okay, an ordinance authorizing the mayor's safety service director to enter into an agreement with MS Consultants Inc. to perform all professional services for 2025 street resurfacing, including final design, bidding, and construction, administration, inspection services.
Motion to bring it out.
Second that.
Is Gary still our representative here?
No, we have Zach Teeter.
Is he as cool as Gary?
I don't know if anybody could be as cool as Gary.
I would agree with that statement.
Gary was a good guy.
Very
He sure
Very
sure
good.
was.
Miss him.
One time me and Gary got into a golf cart together and we had to stay on the sidewalks. An ordinance authorizing the mayor and safety service director to enter into an amendment number 1 to the agreement between the city and environmental design group number 24-00315-01P for engineering services for Wetmore Drive Bridge replacement, PID 118677 retroactive to July 1st, 2024, repealing ordinance number 24-054 and any ordinance inconsistent and declaring an emergency. Motion to bring it out.
Motion to bring it out.
Second.
Second that.
I feel like my signature gets sloppier with each one of these.
Like a doctor.
Yeah. Pretty
And
soon
Bob
I'm-
has such nice
I'm
penmanship,
just
and then
flowing
my
a line
sloppy
there.
signature
you're
gotta
doing
go under.
fine.
Alright, an
his.
ordinance authorizing the tax commissioner to charge off, close and dissolve uncollectible city income tax in compliance with Ohio Revised Code 718.12, limitations and Struthers codified, chapter 171, income tax, and declaring an emergency.
Motion to bring it out.
Second?
Second that.
I didn't think we were ever getting.
Did it,
to
man.
guys, but
You did it.
Here we are. And we even got a good conversation out of it in the middle. Anybody else have anything for this committee? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second that.
Finance and legislation is adjourned.
Okay, I would like to call this general improvements meeting to order. Mr. Parcelli,
Here.
Mr. Bigley.
I'm here.
And Ms. Pingley's here. I just wanted to bring up some stuff. There was a couple properties that I know that we've all had issues with, and they still look the same after so many months of bringing them up. I kind of want to just, I have a couple photos I'll show if you guys want to, whoever didn't see them, you want to pass them around. Did you see
Yeah.
them?
I did not.
Okay, I know 50 Frank Street, Mike Patrick has brought up numerous times, and it still looks absolutely awful. I know Argonne and Como, there's a house, and 136 Spring, I know that I've brought up a few times too. They claim they're getting a dumpster. I go past that house almost every single day. I've never seen a dumpster there, and it's still trash. And this is from like last year, so this is like an ongoing issue. I know that iWorks is no longer, and you have like a new program that you're working with. So I just wanna see what council can do, because the ordinance is safe for unsightly properties. I know I talked to you guys in the office the other day. If you wanna just kind of reiterate what you said about the unsightly ordinance.
So when you came in the other day, I said, talk to John. Did you
I
talk to
did talk to
John?
John.
And what did he say about that?
He
Thank you,
said, it does depend, but I sent him a couple pictures of like the properties, and he said those are all citable.
Okay.
He said there's no reason those can't be cited. So, and he said he couldn't be here tonight, but he will listen in and he'll let us know if he has anything to say.
So
What are you
50
looking at on
Frank specifically,
This one, the
we've
porch
been,
is full, and that other picture is the
That one
backyard too.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
that-
is,
that
I
one
think
is
this
too.
is this,
Argonne.
Fifth Street? This is,
No.
oh, this
There's
is
one on
Argonne?
Fifth Street too,
Yeah.
but see, that's what I'm
so
saying.
the one on Frank Street, John has spoken to on the phone, we've called on the phone, we've talked to them about getting them into court. We've actually sent
That's
them,
Frank
prosecutors notices a few times to come in and they haven't shown. And last time we brought it to John, they had cleaned up when we were going to cite them, and now it's a mess again. So I don't know, did you talk to Billy about these houses?
No, I talked to John, I just went around, got the pictures
So,
today.
So this is something, if you
But they've
talk to
been
Billy.
reported.
But
to
they
Billy
have been
though.
reported in the past too, yeah, but that's what I'm saying, I think the issue is, we have these ordinances in place and they're not being cited, everybody's being talked to, and I know that the communication is there. I just think we're at a point where we have to start going back to citing everybody because nobody's listening
I would
to
say on a
anything.
portion
Exactly.
of, a portion of
I
these,
believe that too. We should be citing.
certain people, if you're a first time offender, you got something laying in the front yard, I think it's good that Billy goes and talks to him, I
Absolutely.
really do.
Right.
Billy goes and talks to everyone.
He does, and I think that that's great. Repeat offenders and people who have habitual
And that's why
crap.
we've taken these ones to John. So
Yeah.
we've been in touch, there's 2 houses in the city, there's one on Narcissa as well, that we've been in touch with John, we've met with him multiple times about how to handle, because we feel there are citable things, but we don't know how to cite everything as a whole.
Do
So
you-
we've been in contact
Do
with John
you
about
need
those 2
something,
houses.
is there something administration needs on our end
I don't
in
think so.
changing
I don't think
these,
so,
in
but
getting more aggressive?
Well,
Some
isn't
of
it,
these-
isn't
There's
a
a blanket
site
one.
just on property
Unsightly.
maintenance?
Right.
Yeah, John
So-
said it's just a blanket.
Just
Well, we have
property
this. Do
maintenance,
you
they
guys-
have to maintain the property.
You guys have this?
Exactly.
But
I
what,
could
what,
There, you don't have to nitpick on, I'm
Here.
gonna cite you for this and this, property maintenance in general, just cite them.
but there has to be something that we're citing them for.
Well, the ordinance says unsightly, and John said that is a blanket ordinance, and that's one he said you guys can usually just use that one because it says unsightly, and
Now,
it's,
on
No,
some,
we've done that
Unsightly to the-
before. So before I was when I was in the prosecutor's office, we had we had 2 officers. One was part-time that did property code, and they would do all this work, get the pictures, fill out everything, they'd get in court, and it would get thrown out.
Well, you know,
It would be a waste of
a
time
great
for
example is
everybody.
it took me years to get that garage
Yeah,
taken
true,
down.
yeah.
And it's gonna probably take me years for them to clean up that area.
oh, you're,
I don't care how many times they go and talk to them, cite them.
Right, but
You know
what-
what?
Your frustration-
But our
Enough is
frustration
enough.
is because some of the people in the city cannot afford to do that,
it
and
doesn't
citing
cost
them for
anything though
things.
sometimes to clean up.
I agree with you, and Billy has
They
went to
have
houses
trash,
and helped him
Because
clean
they had
up.
the trash can out there, you said that yourself, they have trash.
well, the trash because you have to have
But the
trash,
trash,
because it's a city
our,
ordinance.
but our trash takes everything.
Yeah.
Our trash company takes pretty much everything
They're
we
good.
put out there.
They're good.
Yep.
He can put a little bit at a time, he's done nothing.
Which house?
Where the garage was, the
Garage
garage
was
is
on
tore
Center
down and it looks like crap because there's shit everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the neighbors are tired of looking at it. And I'm
I-
tired of looking at it.
I throw out stuff a little bit, I threw out a toilet and a sink in my garbage
And they
the other
take
day,
it,
and
don't
that's,
they
and
take
that's
it?
all that could
So
fit in
you
my
don't have
garbage
to be
can and
poor.
a couple
If
bags.
you have
Yeah.
trash service, you can
You
get
can-
rid of that stuff.
You can,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right,
Yep.
you can get rid of stuff a little
It's a
bit at a
matter,
time.
it's a matter of being lazy. It's not being poor. It's
And that's
being
why I
lazy.
find a lot of these houses that I go past, like if I get a phone call or I run into somebody at the store and they say, go past my house, look right across the street, so I go past and it's just junk everywhere, and it's like, that doesn't cost $1 to go and just put that out to your trash, like that doesn't cost anything.
Megan,
Yes, go
and
ahead.
25 Grandview, I've turned that house in several times, car parts everywhere. Oh, he picked a little bit up, well, yeah, he picked a little up, there's car parts and crap everywhere. You need to get more aggressive on this stuff. You do, Mayor.
Yep.
And again, if there's something we could change on legislation, so that, you know what, we're not writing a 7-day letter.
Yeah,
After Billy's talked to the people and they don't clean it up,
24 hours or something,
just
yeah.
don't go back and cite them, you know what I mean? I know some of our old ones used to have a letter
90 days.
and another
Yeah.
letter and then a hug, and you had to buy them a cup of coffee, and that's how they were. But now, if there's a way that council can help get more aggressive or aid in this, you know, if you're handcuffed by some type of legislation that we have or don't have, then tell me and we'll bring it out, you know what I mean?
Part of the problem too was before our previous code enforcement was going to people and saying, this is not,
He's been
this is
gone
against the
now.
law.
He's
Yeah,
been gone.
exactly, that's what I
It's
said.
what I'm
not, it's
saying-
not on him now.
I know, but what I'm saying is that was the
He did a lot of
norm,
illegal
Precedent.
that was
But
the
that's-
precedence
How
that,
long ago has that
go
been?
clean this up.
It's
So,
not on his
we
We
watch
will
now.
try to get
I know
more,
that.
more aggressive with it. My only problem is, I don't think it's gonna solve your problem. I can cite them $100 a day, they're not gonna pay it because they don't have it.
Yeah, but at some point that becomes,
A lien.
yeah.
Clean your property,
That's
put it
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, I
Absolutely.
mean, you know, at some point they gotta,
But I
people
will
will
say
realize
this.
that.
throw this stuff out. They have an ordinance to have garbage pickup. Throw it
I
out.
will say this both ways. When I call Billy for something, he goes and he does it. I mean, you know, it's not as if, so, I mean, I don't know if you've tried contacting him on these or who has, but when I have problems, I send Billy out there and
And
he's
I've
taking
heard
it.
everybody say that he's been out looking at this and that.
Well, I don't know about
Yeah,
that,
look
but I'm
all you
saying,
want,
I
get it
couldn't
moved.
tell you.
What?
To look all you want, get it moved.
Well, no, I couldn't tell you
Yeah.
on any of these houses or any of that, but I've had several properties in the last 2 years that I've called Billy on. He went out there and talked to people. They cleaned it. I mean, or they did.
Good.
You know what I mean? But
But
as
the
far
ones
as-
that don't, you
I'm
gotta
gonna tell you,
say.
98% of this city is fine. There is probably 2% or something, and the houses that you were mentioning are a problem for us, and they are very stubborn. But there's probably, for every 5 that you showed me, there's probably 50 that he went and talked to them and they got cleaned up.
Do we still do timestamp photos of like violations? Does he still go around and like take any pictures or?
When it gets to that point, I mean, it's, there
Well, how
are
about
certain
with these in
properties-
particular?
There's certain properties that are very, very difficult that people don't wanna cooperate.
Like,
50
And-
Frank, yeah.
50 Frank Street is an obvious one.
Well, I mean, you know, if they don't wanna cooperate, you know, that's fine, but I
We
mean,
send
that
a
doesn't
letter.
mean we can't,
Our
we
law directors have
uh,
sent them letters that telling them to come in and they just ignore you. I mean, it's,
Yeah, but we got, I agree, but we can't take the position of, well, these people aren't gonna come in or they're not, we need to figure out a way to hurt them. And I don't mean physically, I mean,
know.
what is, hurt
to
in their
incentivize them
pocketbook?
somehow, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I guess that's a better word than,
Can they be arrested
them,
for
but, yeah.
violating the orders?
I don't think you're
I
gonna
don't
find a
think
judge
they're
that's gonna throw
arrestable.
somebody in
I
jail.
think
for
But
they're
you
this.
could get them in
MS.
here.
oh no, that, I believe that after so long, all of these go to a misdemeanor, which is a possibility of up to 6 months in jail, and I believe we asked John that.
Yeah.
But
A
that's
few
what I'm
times.
saying is,
Absolutely.
go
I think it
there,
says
arrest
that
him,
in
bring
the
him here
meeting.
and straighten out the
What's that?
situation.
About it
Yep.
turning into a misdemeanor. I think it says that in one of these.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, like, I know in one of these it says that if they want to, like, protest their citation, they can come in front of council. And that's fine, we haven't had one
Well, I don't
person-
think, I think that got taken out.
I don't think so, I think it's still in here.
I believe that council makes the laws.
yeah, we took.
We cannot appeal we cannot be the appeal board,
Right.
if you remember that. It got put in at one point, and then I'm the one who actually
I'll
talked to
double check.
John and said, listen, this doesn't seem like checks and balances to me. If we make the law, and then we have to decide on it later on. And John agreed, so maybe it didn't get changed, but I don't believe we are the appeals board anymore.
Well, we're not enforcers. We're not
No.
administrators. We're legislators. That's
Yeah.
basically all we are.
But that's why I said, if we could aid in legislation, to make, if there's a need, then make it tougher. If it's already tough enough, then we need to start using the full force of it against these people.
Right, I think we need to use what we have already in the books and then go
Ain't
from there.
that, Megan, isn't that what John says, we get enough on the books to,
That's what John said, he said there's enough here to cite,
if you go to 50 Frank Street, they got that fenced in area with trash cars, trash everywhere. Not, if you go look at the front of the house, it's a lot to the right. They got all these inoperable vehicles back there.
Yep.
Sometimes
Right.
they'll have a trailer with the wheels off laying on the ground. That's an inoperable vehicle.
there's a lot of those houses.
Oh, I know,
I mean,
I know. It's frustrating.
it is very
It's
frustrating.
frustrating for us also.
Need to get a little bit stronger with your enforcement.
Anything else?
So, Bob, you are saying though that from what you see in the ordinances, you don't need any help on our part?
I don't see anything that needs to be added. I will talk to Bill, see if he wouldn't like to see something. I mean, the only thing Bill's ever talked to me about was vacant houses.
Okay.
Good? Alright, so I'll call for adjournment,
Motion to adjourn.
second,
So, second.
alright, motion, we are adjourned.
Where's